Okay, we'll start with American Psycho. First off, let me get a gauge on what you guys think. Are you guys like? Do you love American Psycho? Is it like? I'll say this about American Psycho. It's almost a perfect movie. I remember when it first came out. I don't remember it ever coming to the theater. I'm sure it did, but it was one of those movies in the very early 2000s that when it came on home video, it exploded. Like everybody was talking about this movie, and I think it truly was a word of mouth hit, and that's why it is what it is today. And it was so refreshing. And thinking back on it now, it's still very refreshing. It's still one of the most unique movies I've ever seen. And you could, it's a slasher, but it's more than that. It's kind of like a psychological mindfuck of a movie, if I'm being honest. And I think Christian Bale, man, he was perfectly cast for that. Niner Theon says, and I'm sure I said that wrong, but no one liked American Psycho when it first came out. No one knew about American Psycho when it first came out, if I'm being honest. At least not in my circle, And I've always been a big movie fan, but I was in the military at the time, and I think that's kind of where I discovered it. Was like friends that were like movie friends in the military. They started talking about this movie, and I will say this: I fell in love with that movie from the very first time I saw it. It was just so unique with how it dealt with pop culture in the 80s, and how Patrick Bateman, as he was killing his victims, he would give them kind of a little review of 80s popular music. When he's talking about like Genesis and Huey Lewis and the News. That was so refreshing. And I'd never seen a horror movie like that. And you never knew when he was going to, give them the axe. Hey, Paul. A young Jared Leto's in there. But Reese Witherspoon, a lot of young talent was in that movie before they really, really broke out. Not saying it was their first movie, but I'm just saying they were on their rise, early on their rise when that movie came out. And Leonardo DiCaprio was originally, I believe he was cast. I know his name was attached to the movie. Originally, Christian Bale, and I saw this in an interview with him recently, he talked about how he was originally attached to do the movie, and the director, she loved him so much, she thought he was perfect for the movie, but the studio wanted a bigger name. And he kind of just hung around for a year or two, because everything fell through with Leo, and it came back to Christian Bale. And so, sometimes that's just the way these things work in Hollywood. Sometimes luck is a major thing, I mean, look at Stallone when he did First Blood, and he said he was number 11 on the list. Number 11 to be cast as John Rambo. He said they went through farm animals before they got to him, okay? And don't you love stories like that? So, American Psycho, man, this is big shoes to fill. And let me ask you guys this. Would you want this to be a remake, or would you want this to be a sequel, or would you want this to die a fiery death and never exist? I need to know, okay? Because I'm of the mind that the original is always there. No matter what, the original is always there. The original Amityville. They've made, 50 freaking Amityville movies? It doesn't taint the original for me, Now, there's something to be said, like, say, Halloween. What if Halloween never had any sequels? What if Halloween was... Would the movie stand the test of time if there was never a sequel to Halloween? I think it would. And I think there would be something kind of sacred about it, But because money exists, Halloween, there was no way that we were going to avoid sequels to Halloween. So American Psycho is a different animal, though, because it wasn't a big box office hit. It's just more of like kind of like what Boondock Saints was. It wasn't a big hit, but it was a word of mouth hit, a cult favorite. So American Psycho, it's such a unique movie that I would hope that Austin Butler is attached to it. That gets me excited, because Austin Butler is a fantastic actor, So I'm actually excited that he's in it. I would hope that The script is as quirky as the 80s, and maybe this one like touches on like the 90s, or maybe even today. But yeah, I'm not against it. I'll say that. I never even saw the sequel to American Psycho. So, and I never plan on. Yes, Austin is awesome. And I guarantee, did you see Dune Part 2 yet? Holy shit. He's only in the movie for a small amount of time. Phenomenal film. One of the best films of the year. He's a big reason why it was so great. Along with Timothée Chalamet, who this to me was Timothée Chalamet proving himself like fully to me, like he could be a leading man. He was really great. But Austin Butler, man, he was scary in the movie for sure. And you wouldn't recognize him, especially his voice and physically. So, yeah. All right. So let's go back over to the news. All right. People are being humbled after complaining about reports that Austin Butler has been cast as Patrick Bateman in the new American Psycho movie. This is like the newest update. This is after he was announced, and I figured I'd read this one to you to keep it as current as possible, because usually they'll cover what's already been reported in these. Earlier this week, Variety reported that Austin Butler was Luca Guadagnino's first choice to play Patrick Bateman in the upcoming adaptation of American Psycho. Now, the fact that Luca Guadagnino is doing this movie is a huge plus. Okay, he did the Suspiria remake, and that's how you handle a remake. Make it completely different than the original. And I think Luca will do some interesting things in this movie. Okay, and I think he's got Austin Butler in his pocket. That's why I'm not saying hell no to this movie. It's going to be a different animal, and that's a good thing. But I still think it's going to have an artistic touch to it. For reference, Christian Bale previously played Bateman in the 2000 movie of Ellis's book, but it has been said that Guadagnino's project is not a remake of the film, but his own interpretation of the novel. So it's a readaptation of the novel, And there's so many movies that are based on novels, and I think that's the workaround. That's how they get it by the audience to say, hey, no, we're not a remake. We're going back to the original novel, and we're going to make it our own thing, To me, it's still kind of a remake. It's just a different version of the same story, right? I still call it a remake, even if it's a readaptation. I don't know. What do you guys think? While some questioned if Austin, who recently won critical acclaim with just 23 minutes of screen time for their performance as a villain in Dune Part 2, had the required talent to take on such a hotly anticipated role, others complained that Austin had been in too many movies lately. I don't know, I think some parts I would be totally for a newcomer, like say Freddy Krueger, but to me it doesn't matter if it's a newcomer or if it's a seasoned actor. I think with any property, just imagine if you get a newcomer and he is a shitty actor, right? It's got to be somebody that has amazing talent to be able to handle a leading role. And oftentimes, you got a better shot at that with somebody who has, a history, has had a few movies under his belt. Austin Butler hasn't done too many movies really either, especially in a leading role. He was Elvis not only 2 years ago. And Austin Butler is one of the most promising young actors today, like Timothée Chalamet. He's not a cookie cutter type of actor. He's not afraid to try different things, wear different hats, as we've seen in his roles. Okay, it seems like he's almost a chameleon at this point. So that gets me excited. It gets me excited that they're not announcing some actor that pretty much does the same type role every movie, who's just a passable, serviceable actor, right? So I'm for this, and also because it's Luca Guadagnino. Those two things, I'm still happy. Okay.